Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Noms Lab, the space where we talk about all the norms affecting our everyday life. I'm Anjola Ayodele, your host, and I hope you all had a restful Easter holiday. I'm not sure I did though, but I hope you guys had, Today's conversation is one that I think everyone is going to resonate with. And when I look at myself and my life growing up, I think that almost every home that I knew in Lagos had a girl living with them. Not a sister, not quite a housemaid with the paid sense of it, but of course, probably your mom's cousin's daughter or somebody somewhere's daughter. You just feel that this person is staying with you, and this person was awake almost before everyone in the house. I also had one in my house growing up, but I think the exception I would say for me is my mom made sure like she went to school and all of that. She had a good life. She lived she stayed in our room, so she had a place to stay. But I think I'm grown now to understand that this is not the case for everyone, right? In the case where that young girl taken from village to come live with you in the city and support would actually have a good life. So a lot of things to uncover there, especially around the unspoken rules about why this is normal and why it actually works in our society and day. And I have Masturah in the house, who's going to be, chatting with me around some of those norms and have the effect everywhere. Welcome.
Thank you, Angela.
Masturah. Awesome. All right then. So, we're just going to go into the conversation, right? I've sort of laid a background as to my own experience, right? Growing up and having girls in the home, supporting that, all of that. With your work that you've done in the past, how prominent has this been? One, and why do you think most family actually agree to just sending their daughters to the help in that sense in the family?
Thank you very much, Angela, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. So it's something that most of us have seen or learned out of, but we haven't really realized what's really happening. So I say it's quite prominent when I come from especially the Northwest. It's quite predominant to see girls brought up from the rural parts of the state, into urban cities where they are being taken in to support other families or the extended families that are doing well compared to the families who have come from every middle class, even taking in to be able to do household activities for the other family. So it's quite prominent. And the thing is, I think it comes from the angle of support. So the families or the parents or the caregivers tend to think that they are providing a better life, the better opportunity for the girls that they themselves are not able to provide them with. It's also centered around, providing them with access to opportunity, livelihood support, but even from the context of while they're doing this work, they're earning a bit of small stipend, which can be used to contribute to their marriage in the long run. So it's a sort of a way where the girls can be able to get a better life, but as well as contributing to the uptake of the families as well, and also theirs in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, just listening to what you said, things around support, things about someone contributing to the marriage, it seems that it sort of works, and it makes it a bit almost impossible, to challenge. In my case, the girl was doing quite all right. She grew up and all of that. So people point to that and say, is that not working? Like you also said, the support and all of that. And, but I think the exception in that sense, as this exception has become the cover in a way for the rule for why this should be normal, right? And the thing that really doesn't get said out loud is that one, domestic service in someone else's home is like a girl's path, right? A girl's time is available for this, right? Not a boy, but a girl. I think boys also, access a way for, household chores and all of that. But when you look at the girl, the time is longer, right? She's less likely to go to school. And the ones said that you won't go. Sometimes they can't serve. And that's like the reality. Do you think that the parents back home of these girls understand like what's actually going on in the girl's life in the city where she is in hopes that, okay, she's probably being supported, but that's not what is actually happening. So do you think, like, from your experience and what you've seen, do you think that the parents are typically always aware? If they are aware, do they turn a blind eye? Are they happy to just leave her and hoping that something changes in the future? You know, what's that like, essentially?
Yeah, so the first part is the fact that they think that, like, whatever decision that they're taking is in the best interest of the child. That's the first thing. So it's being centered or being coined around care. Yeah. Being able to provide her with a better opportunity. So that's the first framing. Yeah. The second framing is in the part where there's no framework, there's no accountability in place. And oftentimes there's people that you actually trust. So the family have maybe an auntie and an older grandmother who knows someone in the city is looking for help. Then based on that trust, because I know you, you're a family member, you're only neighbors, so I trust that you'll be able to do what's best for my child. Then I say, you know what, I don't think this is a problem. This is a great opportunity. She's going to have to live in the city. She's going to have access to education, maybe even better nutrition, eating 3 times in a day, and all the amenities that the city life will offer her. So because it's coming from a trusted person, they tend to think that the child will be taken, and even given the context of you're going to get an education, they then actually follow up to see whether that is what's happening in reality. But over time, I think some of them do get to understand that that's not what's currently happening in reality.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but then it's either they're getting something in return. The mini stipend that they get is what's being used to make them turn a blind eye to whatever it is that's happening. Or for a fact that because they don't go and check for themselves, so whatever feedback they get, they just imagine that's what's currently happening. So if a caretaker, whoever is the middle person, says, oh no, she's going to formal school, she's eating well, she's doing well, and sometimes they even get to talk to them on the phone, so they just ride on that narrative that everything is going well. So the major gap is there's no framework, there's no accountability system, it's just based on trust. You come to me and ask, okay, you have a daughter. I think we can be able to provide a better life. I trust you. So as my daughter, based on the fact that we know each other, we are neighbors, we are family. So that's just what tends to happen.
Wow. Yeah. So all on trust. As long as you trust me, everything in life. I think the research also just shows this, right? That 1 in 5 children, like, who do domestic work in Lagos are just actually, you know, enrolled in sport, and I think that's really crazy, essentially. So now let's go back to the girl child. Now the girl child has left her home. In fact, probably where she's living, she has no clue what's in the family. Yeah. She goes, by the time she begins to understand what's happening, she's not going to school. She's doing the job and all your class, in the house. Do you have an idea of what's going on in her head as regards her life, her future, and those things she can maybe do to turn a situation around and cope? I say that in cope because I mean she's still a child. There's very little that she can do in that sense, but it's helpful to hear your response.
So from the work that I've done in the past, talking to some of these girls themselves, some of them at the beginning were actually quite excited because there's this whole new life being painted to them. So they're actually looking forward to exactly experiencing the city life and even getting access to education. And for some, it's as basic as I want to be able to speak English. So they speak Hausa, but they do see people on the TV or social media, for those that have access to social media, being able to speak English and hear English. For some, it's just, I want to go to the city and I want to learn English. I want to speak English. So they're actually very excited about the prospect of the brighter future to themselves. Yeah. But eventually, some do get to start to experience some of these things because they actually do get to enroll at the beginning. But then over time, that care shifts. There becomes responsibilities upon responsibilities. You see children themselves taking care of other children within the house. So I am a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old. I'm being stable with the care of a exactly caregiver of the household I'm being part of. So over time, they lose purpose of the fact that they themselves are children. They also need to be taken care of. They also need to have time to rest, play, in addition to the rights that they have for livelihood, dignity, education, what have you. So they tend to lose sight of that. And for them, it takes them into a dark hole where they feel as if, is this like my parents do not love me or do not care for me? That's why they have sent me away to go and fend for myself. So we see cases beyond the exploitation that does happen, because at the end of the day, the stipend is for some as minimum is 5,000 naira, 10,000 naira for a whole day labor. So in addition to the stipend that they're getting and the families tend to collect at the end of the day, you see that they consider themselves just as a means for their families to earn a livelihood. So they tend to think, okay, people don't care about them, their families don't care about them, no one is giving bothered about their livelihood. We also see that shifting away from the domestic burden, which is the national border slavery that we're seeing, but for some even to the extent of getting beaten. So use do happen in some of the contexts. So it's a very dark place for some, where it shifts from care and now becomes exploitation and even abuse.
Wow. Guys, we're taking a short break from the Novels Lab podcast right now to tell you about something very exciting. The 2026 Social Norms Conference is back. Yeah! Some of you may not have heard about the conference, but the conference is one platform which started about 3 years ago that brings together researchers, policymakers, implementing partners, and people who are interested in stories or discussions around social norms and agency. We took a little break last year, but we're back bigger and better this year. We're excited to be telling you about this now, so mark your calendars and look out for updates. See you there. That's a lot to take in and just sit with, right? Because you leave your home, you go into a new city in hopes of a bright future. There's a big sign of that bright future happening, but then it relapses into things like expectation and abuse that you mentioned. And so in any of these cases, did any of those girls like speak up? Or it always went back to the fact that, or norm around, you should be grateful. We're even trying to support you. You shouldn't be talking, right? Yeah. And so in that case, their voice becomes a bit isolated and they can't speak up because there's the norm of you should be grateful that someone is helping you. So were there girls in that situation, and how did they manage to navigate that?
So for most of the cases that I've seen over the years, it's majorly the girl speaking up to the trusted person. So over time, those people tend to come in just to check in to see everything is working or whatever it is. Or on a monthly basis, they actually come to get the cash for those that don't get transfer. So it's a cash payment. So they come into the house, talk to the caregivers, and then talk to the girls as well. So some of the girls do speak up to those trusted persons. So it's left for the trusted person to now do something, which in most cases they don't, because it's a means.
As long as I collect my goodies, I'm okay.
So they have their own commission, and then the rest of the payments then goes back to the parent. So they normally just caution the girls, it's either you're misbehaving and that's where they are treating you the way they are treating you, or it's because you're being ungrateful. So you need to be more grateful, you need to stay silent and what have you. But we have cases where girls have rebelled. They have reached the point where they no longer can take whatever is happening, so they tend to rebel against the families that is hosting them. Exactly. You see them misbehaving, you see them doing all sorts of things with the hopes that the family will
send them away.
And send them away. Exactly. But we have also seen extreme cases where the families are not willing to send them away, so the girls take it upon themselves to run away, which is a very dangerous situation because the girls might not end up going back home. So we see some of them even ending up on the street or even in far worse cases.
Wow. So I look at the silence, I look at some of the obligations and these things that you've mentioned around, how girls react to this in the end. Is there always a means, or is there a way where they find themselves in all of these situations? Like, I still have a bright future and my future is beyond where I am currently. Do girls ever get to experience that?
I don't. I don't think so, because most of them leave home from a very young age, so they haven't reached the point where we can say they have their own sense of agency. They can be able to understand what they want, be able to make decisions for themselves, and even negotiate the terms of whatever contract that they have. So if they have reached that point, then they can be able to even sit with the host and say, okay, I can support or I can do whatever you want me to do, but
this is
I
what
have this vision or I have this dream of going to school. Exactly. So I don't think the girls get to that level where they understand this is the context and this is what I want for myself, and be able to even speak up.
So really no agency.
No agency at all.
They just get to live through the situation.
Exactly. Whatever their parents decide or whatever the elder decide for them, for themselves, they tend to follow through.
Right. So far we've established a few things. One, the norms around, families wanting to support their children and trusting fellow people to say they can give their children a brighter future, and that's just in a way escalates into exploitation, abuse, and all of those things we've talked about. There's also the things around the norms around a girl wanting to be grateful for having the opportunity to be able to support our family, and so doesn't have a lot or hasn't developed a lot of agency in that sense to be able to stand for what's right and whatnot. So those are things we've uncovered over time, and somehow these are difficult conversations to have, but we still see them happening in our society today. And this takes me back now to, we've talked about the trusted person in this scenario, we talked about the child, we talked about the family and the host. What about the people around them in that situation? Because I mean, someone else has to see that this is clearly not right. For example, neighbors. And I think the norm is people really don't talk about these things. They just mind my business. I face my front, I walk up past. The people around are. Why is it that people don't feel moved to do anything? Why do you think that is?
I think because it's mostly seen as a private matter,
right?
And then it's also coined or centered around care. So people don't think that's something that actually affects the entire community or entire society. It's a private matter. I come to you as a family, you then decide whatever happens to your child, whether a girl or a boy. You as the family, you as the parent, you are the right holder, so you can decide whatever it is that you want to decide for your child. And so that's why I think the general community or the general society don't get involved into this type of matter. It's seen as a private thing.
Right, so it's family business.
Exactly.
And so that phrase just closes every door for everybody to want to step in. And I'll say that the norm that we're surfacing here is everyone has that instinct to want to protect the family as a unit. You're not protecting the girl who doesn't have agency, but more around this family, that's their business, let them handle it. I wouldn't want anybody to meddle in my own business, so let's not meddle where all of these things happen. Sad, but it's our reality. So we move on to prevention, right? So prevention, not in the sense of it has happened, but before it happens. What could be done differently in that, say for instance, a family in Kebbi right now that's trying to make a decision as to send their child to Lagos for this kind of arrangements? What can be brought into that conversation to prevent things like this from occurring?
I think the first thing is also understanding the context of the word. So for what we are seeing, because it's a private matter, it's actually very informal. So there's no conversation around what the child or what the girl or the boy is going to actually be doing. So if we're going to make sure that girls are protected, or children in essence are protected, then we need to make sure that the right things are put in place. And by the right things, I mean, even it's an informal contract, it needs to be put in place, it needs to be documented. So one thing is the language that we put it's care. So if we're saying we're going to take children to the city or wherever it is that we're taking them, and we're promising to give them access to education, dignity, livelihood, whatever it is, then we need to put that on paper. So I feel that's the first step. If we're putting or documenting some of these promises, because they are promises, if we're putting them on paper, then that's the first step. We know that you agreed to support this child for a number of years to have basic education. Then you need to own up your end of the bargain. So that's the first thing. And another thing is accountability.
Yep.
So most times parents send their children to the city without actually even knowing where exactly the child is going. If you trust me, I'll just tell you, okay, I'm taking her to Abuja. Abuja where? You don't know. If something happens to the person, the middle person, at the end of the day, how do you trace your child?
There's no clue where the child is.
So accountability mechanism needs to be in place, starting from the family, linking it to whoever the middle person is, and then the host, so that there are checks and balances frequently, just to see whether yes, the child is safe, whether the promises are being upheld. So I think these two things are some of the key steps that we need to make sure that is there. For some context, it's also good to highlight that I think at the beginning you mentioned that even while growing up you had someone in your house, but then your mother was able to provide her with the basic education, she had a good life, she's even doing well for herself now. So some families like this exist where they actually take in the other person or the children and then treat them as their own. So we have such cases where over time they finish basic secondary school, they even go up to the university and then become something for themselves and even be able to support their family. So this sort of situations also exist, and these are the positives that we want to highlight. But treating or preventing it from shifting away from the negative to the positive is when we uphold those promises, and the only way we can do that is making sure that we have some sort of written agreement in place, because we can't assume everyone is going to be an angel and treat the other person the way they're supposed to be treated. So I think these two things.
So there you have it, guys. Accountability and documentation is key. Hopefully people take this advice, and as they send their children for care or help in other states or far away from home, they're able to implement some of those things. I think I want to end with a question around, if we do strip the word care or help away from this sort of agreements, do you think that would change anything?
I think that would actually get us a major shift, because we all need to also start to acknowledge and also see it from the angle of abuse, harm, and also exploitation. Right now, all of us, and I mean even myself included, because I see these girls within families, within extended families, even where I come from. So we need to start speaking up. We need to also start looking at it from the angle of exploitation and harm. Even though, yes, we're providing them with a platform for them to earn, taking them probably away from the street instead of them working, we're asking them to do menial jobs at home. But we also need to acknowledge the fact that we are also exploiting them. So when we start to understand that, we also start to acknowledge the language, then we start to put in measures in place to make sure that that care, that dignity is actually there. Because if I don't acknowledge that there's a problem, there's no way I'm going to even put measures in place to be able to solve it. So we need to understand that, in as much as these children are probably getting a means of livelihood, the summer stipend that they are getting, or even access to basic education, at the end of the day, we're actually just exploiting them. So we need to understand that, and then see how we can be able to balance to see that, yes, while we're providing them with this support, but they are also getting the basic rights and dignity to live a dignified life at the end of the day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Masturah. And there you have it, guys. What stays with me in this entire conversation is that nobody in this story has to be a villain for the harm to happen. So the parents who send their daughters, they love them. They're trying to give them a better future. The family that is hosting them, they're also coming from a place of genuine care where they're genuinely offering a better future, but some things happen along the way. The neighbors who don't say anything, they're not cruel. They're just following the rules that nobody really ever talks about. And so that's what I think makes this a non-problem in the end. The harm runs on love. It runs on promises of a better future. It runs on promises of support and habits that nobody ever questions. And the only thing that gets to interrupt this is when people begin to ask the hard questions. When a parent begins to say, where's my child? What's my child actually doing in that place? Is she doing okay? A neighbor that doesn't turn a blind eye to the abuse that you're seeing. And, a teacher or, somebody who doesn't see the child and is genuinely asking about the whereabouts of the child. And that's when all of these things begin to start, that we can break the cycle of the abuse and exploitation that is ongoing. And so that's the question that everyone needs to ask, and I think that's where changing the narrative will start from. Thanks for listening. This is Norms Lab. I'm your host, Anjola Ayodele.